Well, hello. I'm Alice from Alice's Garden to Plate. I teamed up with Willow Spice Company, and together we gave back to the community by doing a free in-person course on vegetable gardening. There were veterans, new people, and all in between. They all took something from it. I didn't get a chance to go over everything that I wanted for the course, so this video is going to be doing that. YouTube is wonderful because it has chapters, so you can go to the ones that you want. So what you will see is highlights from the course, some goofy fun moments that I had, and then great visuals to truly capture and understand that the students got to see. I am more than welcome to taking questions, so if you want anything in the comments, just ask, and I'm here to meet you where you are. Channel that's really great. It has a lot of playlists, which is awesome because it goes from connecting your garden to plate, hence my name. Because like many of you, I was naive. I didn't know a lot of information, and I started back in 2002 with barely no money. There was a small little plot of land right next to my door. I had literally a 2 foot by 2 foot space that was just dirt, and I planted a tomato plant and I did herbs. I was very limited in resources. Sometimes it's not about perfection, it's about starting your garden. See, a lot of people that are new gardeners, they fear that what the most is failure. And I'm here to tell you guys, there's a mindset. We can change that. When you set yourself up right and you got the right knowledge, that insecurity goes away. And then you get the benefits. You turn those moments of failures to learning lessons, for example. It's awesome. I have over 20 years experience. I've tried the tricks and tips out there. I have been on multiple places in the United States, southern states, on each coast, and now up here in Michigan. I specialize with raised beds, hydroponics, container garden, and in-ground. I take on a lot of different gardening, so I had to come up with a system that eliminates a lot of the overwhelm and truly grow what I needed. So in the course, you're going to find great information. Feedback that I got from the students is it felt so welcoming, and it eased their minds to not feel so overwhelmed, and they felt included, because that's what we are, a garden community. Stores, we're starting to get stuff. The produce is starting to get a little beat, and some of the hybrids and stuff like that, the GMOs. A lot of people are wanting a garden for that. Well, if you look at it this point, I sell jam that's all natural. It would not handle going in a semi back and forth because of the heat transfers, because jam itself can only be between 65 to 75 degrees at shelf stable. When it goes below 65, it loses its flavor profile. So the industry is like, how do I do that? And that's where the synthetics came in. Our bodies didn't process synthetics. I was raised up on a grocery store, probably like many of you are. And you want to get back to connecting your garden to plate. So how do you do that? What resources? It's overwhelming, and I totally get that. And I'm here to eliminate a lot of that. Make you feel confident getting into the garden season. Let's go with one of the three basics: sunlight, soil, and watering. When you understand that fully, you have an advantage because you're knowledgeable and you know how to work with your plants. First one is sunlight. Sunlight is very crucial in understanding because those leaves, through photosynthesis, I call them solar panels, they take the energy from the sun. And all plants have different needs for when it comes to the amount that they need. So depending on what you're growing, you have options. So let's say you're over your house and it changes different shadows throughout the day, and depending on which season it is in, it is the amount of sunlight that you'll get. So mapping out your house is very important. Here's a diagram. The position of your plants in the bed itself is important because remember, there are taller ones and shorter ones. As you can see, tall and short. Where you put them is in reflection of the sun. You can also use taller ones to create shades for doing cooler loving crops. year round. And also going in the front so it doesn't get blocked. So in the diagram I'm about to show you, there are sunflowers in the center. They use them to not only attract pollinators, but to work with doing lettuces, cabbages, and stuff like that, things that prefer to be cooler, and they can go in lower light. All of the stuff in front of it was shorter and sun-loving. There are amazing meters that are available. See that little spot right there? That figures out how many Kelvin or lumens that are in the light source. It will give you the range of what it is. This also will do pH and water, but we'll get to that later. You can put that meter, figure out the range, and see if it's a good source of light for an amount of time. That will help you determine if it's for the sun-loving crops like peppers and tomatoes that want 8+. While the other ones want a little bit shorter, it'll help you figure all of that and mapping it out. Number 2, important factor in the basics, watering. Watering is incredibly important because you took all that time to build this beautiful soil, and there's a lot of nutrients there, but how do the roots get it? Through moisture. So it's important of how much and when you put it in. So let's get to when. The best time is in the morning around 6 a.m. to 6:30 because it is morning dew. The plants have opened their pores and they're ready to absorb. Roots are like straws. They're going to want to take it in. If you did it in the middle of the day, the hottest part, you could have lost from evaporation. If you need to cool down your plants later on, if you notice they're starting to crash from it being really hot, there is a way to prevent that by shade cloth, or if you have a whole entire week of just crazy sun and it's like 95, highly suggest it. A good soaking and having mulch will keep your plants cooler too, but 4 to 5 p.m. is okay. If you water later on than that, it's possibility of having really soggy roots and it's not going to have time to evaporate enough and you could have issues. Plus it's a giant magnet for slugs. You did all of this work to grow your vegetables and now you're making the perfect environment for them. It's just like, come on to the trough, here's all your food. We don't want that, do we? Just the watering, this is funny. I know a lot of us hippies will even get arguing on the internet about watering. They're like, it rains. So I'm gonna just blast water on top of my plant. It's just like rain, right? So if you think about it, they're like, plants are like little umbrellas, right? The water will get in between a little bit, but what's going on with the ground where they take the water? It's barely wet. So if it rained that day and you only got an hour, you'll have a little bit of wetness. If it rained for 4 or 5 hours, you're getting a good soak. I take a moisture meter. I don't water every day. I check multiple times throughout the week because if it's really wet, I don't want to water it. Even though I got a timer and a hose connection and a drip irrigation system, which is awesome, I don't want to water every day. Or if I got a big forecast coming of rain, there you can do a rain delay, absolutely, or just shut off the system because you're having days of rain. But it's important to know the amount of water because every plant has different needs when it comes to moisture uptake. So you put in the meter, it's going to say how saturated it is, and then you can adjust from there. And here is a pro tip on tomatoes. Okay, they have these beautiful roots. If they're more on the surface, they'll be able to get the water and all of that, great. But if they are like, I'm not getting water every day, they're going to want to go down further, which is more nutrient intake and stronger structure to hold against wind. Number 3, soil, truly the foundation of your garden. There's a lot to cover in this one, and I gave a tremendous amount of tips into it. But the one thing that I want to advise you on is the more healthy you make your soil, the resistance to disease, and we have immunity, so does our plants. And if you give it optimal immunity boosts and keeping that soil health, your garden's going to do amazing. There's this thing that gardeners like to do is rotate crops. That's meant for farmers. When our back gardens, I don't do that. I focus on the health of the soil, making sure that my plants are more disease resistant, mulching properly to contain moisture and not have the spores splash up back on the plants, and also having the microorganisms fully fed all the time and very healthy. If you see that diagram right there, it shows that there's a lot of different life and they all do different things for the plants. Because when the plants are connected to the soil, the plants will send in natural sugars for the microorganisms to eat, and then the fecal matter from the microorganisms will also feed the plant. They're actually connected to one another. So how do you feed the soil? How do you get it there? A lot of you guys are wondering about that. So your first year, the soil is just okay. You're going to add to it every year. So your first year garden is just it'll give you some vegetables, but in the years coming, as you're feeding your garden, it grows with you. So that's what's awesome about it. My husband likes to brew beer, and we take the spent grain, for example, in the winter, and we dump it into my garden. The birds come, they eat what they want, and then also that has a nice thick material. It adds air to the soil, and the microorganisms eat it throughout the winter. So it actually feeds back the soil. The other thing that I like doing is leaf matter. That like break it up, like oak pieces, all those leaves that we get out of our yard where we don't want them to because they look like a mess. Save them, put them in the bags, let them dry out, and then you can crush them up and put them into your soil, and it acts as a mulch, and it also feeds the microorganisms, which is really awesome. Then we get into spring. There is ways to feed your soil as well. Early on, I put in what is called cover crops. Cover crops are a multitude of things. They are a bunch of seeds, from radishes, kales. You're going to have legumes and grasses. That all works together. Believe it or not, we have a lot of nitrogen in our air, and a lot of that gets pulled in, especially after a heavy rain in the atmosphere and all of that's going on. Those legumes will pull it in and put droplets into their roots, and then will feed the soil. Cover crops are starting to come to a new thing when it comes to farmers. They're trying to convert back instead of constantly using heavy synthetic fertilizers. For example, corn, huge eater, right? So they're taking the cover crops right along with it. It suppresses weeds, and then all of the different things that the plants are working with each other to add the nutrient into the soil is bioavailable to it. So there's that. Towards the end of the season, after I pulled everything out, meaning just chopped the top of the plant, left the roots to hold the structure, and the microorganisms can eat the roots of that, but I also do another cover crop. And in that cover crop mix, there's a seed called hairy vetch. It's a perennial. In the spring, it's the first thing that's going to come up. It's going to handle the first winter, no problem. Come up, and it will grow these purple, beautiful flowers. It'd be the first food source for your pollinators. The other thing that's awesome about cover crops is when you leave it in the fall, you're creating a lot of homes for your beneficial insects to hibernate in. So that's crucial. So you're preventing weeds, erosion, adding nutrients. So how do you use it? You just leave it there? With some crops, yes. While others, it may choke stuff out. So you just chop down the main greens of it, right? Pull out the roots, break all that material up as fine as you can, mix it into the first layer. Then you can put your plants in at that time, and then you will put your regular mulch, and the microorganisms will break all of it down and it'll be bioavailable later on, and it's just plants feeding plants. You already got the pooling of what's going into the soil from main part, but all of that organic matter is going to break down and go in. So the one animal product that is bioavailable and ready to use instantly is our little rabbits that we think are cute, right? Well, they sometimes be a pest, but if you guard your garden where you have fencing and stuff like that, and you do allow them access, their fecal matter actually is it's ready. It's composted, it doesn't burn, and it is available. The rabbits were like, well, there's a lot of free food here from, like, you know, my vines and the tomatoes and stuff left behind. They came through, and now I got a lot of free fertilizer, which is pretty cool. So people work with nature absolutely. You can compost. It takes a lot of effort. And if you're totally wanting to do that, by all means, leave all those towels in the dryer for a week and a half and the dishes stacked. Just go focus on that compost because you're going to need that time. It takes different types of materials, constantly rotating. It's not always quickly available, so there's different stations that you need in order to get to the next process because you're always going to be taking weeds and stuff like that. One of the things that I talked about in the class is using your weeds to feed your garden. You're like, what? You chop the weeds that are there, but you can use them. I took a little hoe, broke it, took the leaf matter, broke it, threw it over the bed. Because the microorganisms such as roly-polies and other things will still eat that and it'll be bioavailable for the soil. So if you don't want to waste your weeds, it's another way of utilizing them, for sure. Some people actually make what is called weed tea, where they take all of their green material, put it in a bucket, which has got to have oxygen, because otherwise it gets really gross and not usable. And they will let it go there for a few days and ferment, because the natural cultures is also really good to feed your soil too, and adding it more in. And they literally use their weeds, and they make the tea and they pour it. That's a natural way of using them.
You don't drink it, you pour it.
Yeah.
Clarify that.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about all the different types of gardening. That is going to be the raised beds, the container garden, to hydroponics, to in-ground. So let's start off with raised beds. I had to do raised beds because my soil would take years of using lime and compost to make it even the slightest soft. It's straight like concrete, my clay. Can't happen. And I wanted the garden, so I did raised beds. There's a lot of stuff on the internet. 2 pages when you're in Google, just scrolling through. They're all say using cardboard. But I'm always like, let's see, that's a common practice that everybody's doing. Let's do a quick Google search and see if anybody is like, I don't know about that. Let's see if there's a study and people focused on that and see what they got from the findings. What they found was that the cardboard messed with the oxygen and CO2 exchange. In order for the microorganisms to be able to consume the food that's there for them, they have to have oxygen. The fecal matter becomes CO2, the plants can absorb that, but only at so much. The roots too also need to have oxygen. And what they found is the cardboard blocked from the earth connection in the raised bed, or if you're even doing in ground and you just do a layer of cardboard, it messed with the exchange. And what they found is the forever chemicals in the cardboard leached into the dirt. The plants did not do well. And they did their study with different types of bedding, and they noticed the ones that were very thin liner, that had a lot of breathe and it was natural, the plants thrived. So please do not put cardboard on the bottom of your beds. It just takes a quick Google search. What liners are non-toxic and also breathable? There's many out there. Choose what's best for you. Mulch is so important. When it comes to mulch, what does it do for you? Well, it makes sure that the moisture retention is still within the soil. So it keeps your plants cooler, especially in the hottest part of the day. There are some diseases and stuff that could splash up that's naturally occurring in your soil. The healthier your soil, the more it's not there. but it still occurs naturally. So what you have to do is you want a barrier in between your plant leaves and that, so it protects from that splash up and you won't have that disease, so it slows it down. Pruning your plants up so high too, the peppers and tomatoes, creates more air and it slows down the possibility of disease. What type of mulch do you go with? I personally use the thin pine shavings that are at my Tractor Supply. I reached out to a master gardener because so many people on the internet said, don't use that, it's going to mess with your pH. I said, okay. I talked to the master gardener. He goes, actually, it's not going to alter your pH, and that's a lot of carbon, and it's great for your microorganisms, and it lays more flat. That is a perfect choice. Absolutely go through with that. So you don't always go by what the internet says. Look for master gardeners, look for studies, because that is the more way to go. Pathways. You don't want weeds, right? And you want a barrier. We've already talked about that. The thickness that you use. You can use wood chips. Don't get the wood chips with preen in it, because preen is a weed killer. You're like, yeah, great, but it's not really meant to be around vegetables that can leach into your gardens. Straw is almost completely rid of seeds because the part of the seed part was taken off and you're just getting mainly the stalks, but they could be present. And also from other weeds that were mixed within the wheat culture and all of that when it was, growing. So it is great. It reflects back the sun and keeps the ground cool. Great for pathways, great for in beds. Just be wary of the seeds. Find out how much is within the company if they do a practice of removing it and ensuring that. pH, potential hydrogen. Let's get to it. So that's something we learned in school. There is acidic to alkaline, right? A range. 5.6 is around where berries like to be. That is acidic. Gardens like to be around the neutral zone, which is between 6.5 to 7 when it comes to vegetables. That's a very general number they prefer to be in. When you go 8 and above, that's alkaline. The reason that matters is if the plant likes a particular pH in that range, it can absorb its nutrients at its best. So if you're off, you can absolutely adjust it. There's ways. You can do a liquid form by Bloom City and alter it really quickly. If you're noticing it's really bad, it will adjust it. It's a quick thing. But then there's granules from Espoma. Espoma is a great company I highly suggest. They do very sustainable things and they are highest of standards. They have tones. One's for hydrangeas and one's for holly. One is more acidic, one is getting you to the neutral zone. So you can put the granules down and by watering, it's going to slowly take care of it. So if you're around 6, but you want to get about 6.5, that's when the granules. You don't want a huge quick adjustment. That's when you use those. The meter. Your water of your house has its own pH, so water that area with the granule, give it about a good day to sit, put that meter in, see where your pH is. 6.5 to 7 for vegetables. Not everybody can do a garden indoors, and you can get with a community garden. Willow Spice Company is offering that. Find out your local community and you can work with them and grow your own food that way. That is usually in-ground or raised beds that are available. Community centers actually will have some of those as well, so absolutely find that. The other way is container garden. If you had a balcony or if you just had a few pots and that's all you want to grow, you can absolutely do that. Container gardens are great because you water, it'll drain well, and you have the soil, you can work with it, and all of that. That is great. My mother, who's getting older, she had a beautiful raised bed. She just wants to put some perennials in there and be done with it. And then she's like, Alice, I still want to grow vegetables, but I want to go in a container because they're portable, easy to grab, and go. And I'm like, I'm here for you. Let's do this. I am actually taking pepper plants that I'm going to grow year round because of my business. I make seasonings. I need peppers all the time. So those are going to be living in pots. The other things too is you got these beautiful bins that have water, self-watering and all of that you can put on your deck, and you can grow a single tomato. There are varieties of plants too that are perfect for container. A quick Google search or a flip of the tag. It's going to tell you the hardiness zone. It's going to tell you if it's container friendly. You don't have to necessarily start seeds indoors. I do both. I buy from a local nursery because I want the heirlooms, because I know they'll adapt to my area because they have been same to make for 40 plus years. And it'll be better than going to the big box stores that have who knows what state they came from, and they went in a semi, they're already in shock, and then trying to adjust to being outside again, loving the nursery that they had before. So support local. There's also a lot of us gardeners that have a lot of extras and we grow on purpose to make a little side hustle. Buy from us, which is awesome, because we have more control and on hands of what's going on with those plants. More love, better for you. The Garden to Plate Journal is a printable instant download PDF. If you want to get into growing your own seeds, it gives you everything you need to figure out for the basic plants in our area, Zone 6 and 6B, when it comes to Southeast Michigan. All of that for the ones that you want. But if you get more exotics and you want different types of plants, it tells you when to start them indoors, when to transfer to the garden, when they're going to be done by, so you can do succession gardening. Succession gardening is awesome because your cucumbers are going to give you one crop, and if you just want to have cucumbers throughout the season, you need to start them at different times. And you can absolutely figure all of that out through this journal. There's also another method that people want to do because they want to go higher so you don't break their backs. They want to fill it because all of that is expensive to fill your beds. So why don't we work with materials? Well, if you have big, thick logs, that's going to fill a great space, right? But water that we talked about already will go down on a flat surface, and if it's not even out, it's like, where do I go? You could have oversaturation, and you can also compact your soil because it's not a good drainage. Don't want that. Then if you had wood as thick as my arm, right, that's going to take time to break down. Twigs are more thin branches, and wood chips that are untreated, different organic matter that you've collected, just level it out. Now how do you fill that? What kind of dirt? So you're going to get a common topsoil to fill it up above all that wood. So wiggle down in. Want to throw some perlite in there because it will help with aeration of the soil. Then also you want to do a top layer of rich compost because that's already bioavailable, ready to rock, going in. And if you're in Taylor, Michigan, and you're a resident, you want to go to their station, and I'll give the details inside of the description here of all of that. You can buy compost if you're a non-resident. That's already ready to go. It's already full bioavailable, and the residents get it for free. You just have to show an ID. They have specific hours. Raised beds are also really great because you have control over the drainage. They warm up faster in the season, but they also cool down faster. So that is something that you have to consider. Now let's go to the other type that people like to do, in-ground. Your first year of in-ground, you got really tight soil, you're gonna wanna rototill it, at least 6 to 8 inches to have it available. Throw in some of that perlite that I talked about with raised beds so you have aeration. Cover crops the first time, so you gotta plan this. Takes 6 to 8 weeks to get going before you even want to plant. So cover crops will make sure there's no weeds available because you just made that land bare and ready to use. and it will put a lot of health into your soil. We've already discussed that. In Monroe County, or in the county that you live in, there is a way to take your soil. You want to go to the extension. It's usually $20 to $25 depending on where you are. You can send off the soil that you have, and they will tell you how to amend it and what it needs and where you're at. Now let's talk NPK and how it works. The first one is nitrogen. That feeds your stems and your leaves, aka solar panels. The phosphorus in the center, that is going to feed your roots and also work with blossoms and fruit. The third, the potassium, the K, that's going to focus on all around immunity. It's going to work with photosynthesis. It's going to work with the cellular of the stems to make sure it has good and strong, and help with the root health as well. So it's absolutely crucial. When you use it and how you use it really helps you out. So let me give you an example that I gave my class. Onions. You want them big babies? Listen to this. I use Espoma 10-10-10 right when I have a already perfect little sprout, a seedling of onion. Put that in there, inch down, feed that hole. It's going to give it everything it needs with that triple number, all those nutrients that I discussed, to start off and get strong. Now, I don't want to continually feed it the 10-10-10 because I don't want flowers. Switch to only focusing on the leaves, the nitrogen. For the rest of the season, I only feed blood meal. And then towards the end of the harvest, you're going to notice lots and lots and lots of leaves. The more leaves, the more layers of that onion. That's how it works. You let the bed dry out a little bit. I have done lots of content on how to cure, and onions specifically, so go check out my playlists. Synthetic fertilizer versus organic. Why you want to choose between the two. Okay, so organic, especially if you work with Dr. Earth or Espoma, non-affiliation, use it for 20 years now, and I love them because they have the best practices. And they have more stuff available. Sometimes you got to roll the dice, and I kind of was a rebel here, and I didn't test my soil and figure out what's going on. Dr. Earth has a slow release formula that's patented. Energy is ready for the microorganisms to get to them, and that's what they need. So you can boost the health of your soil. Synthetics go right for the plant, help it quickly, have a lot of salts. Too much salt built up. Say, for example, think of a tomato plant. If it gets clogged with all of that hard mineral going in, what is it going to do? It can't absorb the nutrients to get to where it needs to be, right? And it slows with watering too. We don't want that. Liquid versus granule. Liquid, even organic, is going to give you what you need quickly. So if you notice a plant struggle bus, having a hard day, liquid that baby, you got it. Personally, I like using Box Farm, Big Bloom. Depending on the NPK, go by the instructions for the amounts that you need. That will give it a quick boost and help it out. Absolutely. The other thing too is, like, how often do I feed? Well, when I did a slow release granule, it's feeding over a period of time, right? So I don't constantly have to do it. I usually go between 3 to 6 weeks, pull back the mulch, put in my granule, scratch it into the soil because we don't want it to mold. That's a mold that we don't want. Leaf mold's awesome, by the way. And then you can put the mulch back, and it's going to be available every time you water. Plant tones. Yes, those are awesome. Outside of the standard NPK, they give other things that the plant specifically need. There's a berry tone, there's a tomato tone. Tomato tone has humic acids. That is something that peppers and tomatoes, they're related, they love to have. And a safe sulfur, which has to work with the acid level that it prefers being in. So you put that into the hole at transplant, and it'll jumpstart that tomato or pepper and give it everything it needs. And then, like I said before, wait about 3 to 6 weeks, move that mulch, put it in for the tone, and you'll be fantastic and ready to go. Let's talk about pests and how to repel them naturally. One of the things in the class that I talked about is companion plants. Remember, I talked about cover crops. There's different foods that the roots can bring and give to the soil. That's a thing. It's also with companion plants. Also, the strong smells will repel things away while it brings in others. There's different types of flowers that certain awesome bugs that we want that take care of the ones we don't want. For example, I'm going to give it to you for tomato plants. I like using dark opal basil or spicy globe. They're very potent in smell, and it'll repel the hornworms that we do not want. The flowers of a parsley are very fine and beautiful. That will attract a hoverfly. And I said, this environment's cool. I'll have them, put my kids here. It's organic. I'm good. And it's all awesome. So the babies will eat a ton of aphids and things like that. If you used a bunch of pesticide, especially the synthetics, that actually will hurt your beneficial bugs. So repel by smell or bring in that attracts, have that. There are times where you're going to come up with, you have a straight up infestation and it got out of control, and even your beneficial insects that you try to get into your garden aren't helping enough. Well, that's when you quarantine the plants, block them off. Arbor bioinsecticide is plant compound. Also, neem cake into the soil will prevent nematodes. It's a powder form from the shells from the fruit, ground up. It still has a residual oil from the neem oil. It is an awesome thing for you to use if you have an issue. Also, root nematodes are bad. You have French marigolds that release this natural thing that's not toxic to us or the other bugs, but those root nematodes, it's toxic to them only, and it takes care of them. They don't want to be near your plants, so your roots stay healthy. You take the bioinsecticide, mix it according to the directions, but you need something as a binder. I like using Castile soap. It is non-toxic, so you mix with the water in the ratios that they tell you. You spray your plants heavily, put the canopy over. Arbor bioinsecticide is more safe for bees, but don't spray it while they're there. Spray it in the early morning before they wake up or after they went to bed, and you still want to quarantine that plant because if it's an infestation, all of that area, so you can do that with a little netting over it, tie it down around the plant, and it will take care of that issue, and then you can take that off and welcome everybody back. Hydroponics, indoor all year, and what's awesome is you control the nutrient. We talked about NPK and all of that. You control the pH, you control the nutrient in the water, and how clean it is. There's this thing called enzymatic cleanser. It keeps the roots clear of pulling of getting heavy mineral, because the more clean the water, no particle being it, you want the cleanest water you can have. I personally use reverse osmosis and deionize. All particles removed. That means all of those awesome minerals, so I have to replenish it. I use CalMag for that, and then I use the Fox Farm liquid that I showed you about earlier to feed them. It's fantastic, but there's different ones, and when you're in what stage you are, some of Fox Farm's products help when you are in fruit development or flower. So depending on the stage, or from when you're going from seedling, they have a much gentler NPK that's small, and then it goes to the different ways. So it depends on where you're at with your plants. But I can grow all my herbs. I've grown full tomato plants. There's a bunch of different types that you can do in bucket with LECA, water pumps, all of that. There's systems that are already pre-made, like the Dryatus. no affiliation, they're on Amazon. That's great for short earths and stuff like that. Where the Garden, Garydn, that is awesome for big plants. I will show you some pictures on that. I wanted to close this course with this. In my YouTube playlist, there's Connecting Up Garden to Plate. There's so many playlists. There is how to preserve, different methods, growing organically in ground, and all of the growing methods that I talked about, hydroponic and that playlists. Creating recipes, absolutely from your harvest. Because I challenged myself, said I need to start using all the stuff that I preserved or fresh from that and create amazing meals from that. I share a lot of that. May it inspire you to make your own creations, or you try my recipe out. The other thing too that I really want to emphasize, the Garden to Plate journal is a one-time purchase. You go to PayPal, you pay it, and it's instant download, printable PDF. It's going to get you from A to Z, give you the reference material that you need, including the companion plants that I talked about earlier, and help you plan your garden by your recipes. That's how I'm different. You can have a conversion in here of figuring out how many plants you need and all of that. I will put everything that I talked about this entire video and a reference into the description. Let's grow together.